네, 안녕하세요. 승승장구 이프로입니다. 오늘은 우리 리플, XRP 코인을 비롯한 암호화폐가 어떻게 이제 실생활에 유용하게 쓰이는지, 그리고 이 암호화폐란 기술이 수억 명의 신규 사용자에 다가가기 위한 어떤 과제를 가지고 있는지를 이야기를 해보고자 하는데요. 이를 위해서 이제 리플의 CEO인 브래드 갈링하우스와 이제 바이낸스의 CEO인 리처드 탱의 이제 CFC와의 인터뷰를 가져와 봤습니다. 해당 내용 암호화폐계에서 정말 거물이라고 할 수 있는 두 사람이 만난 만큼 끝까지 시청을 해 보시면 좋으실 것 같고요. 시청하시기 전 구독과 좋아요, 알람 설정 부탁드리면서 영상 시작하겠습니다.
Okay, let's dive a little bit deeper on that utility piece then. It's often said that crypto eventually will need to recede into the background. It needs to be the case that those who are using crypto services or services built on crypto rails need not necessarily know that that's what's going on behind the scenes. I wonder, Brad, whether you could speak a little bit about the pieces of the puzzle that are yet to kind of fit into place to make that a reality.
Well, I mean, I'll use Ripple. I mean, I never want to do a commercial of your own company, but I think what Ripple's been trying to do is go to institutions and deliver a service that their customers have no idea that the cross-border payment they just made went through crypto. And they shouldn't care. It was fast, it was cheap, it was very accurate, and to Richard's point earlier, it settles, very, very quickly. The things that I think, could be better, for those of us who self-custody, some of those technologies are hard. I heard horror stories, which I don't know if they're true, but, people whose wallets were burned down in the fires in LA and their secret keys were in the safe that also is now melted. That on one hand, that's the nature of this technology. On the other hand, that's a deterrent to getting more and more people to participate in this economy.
And then how do we then set about kind of threading the needle, recognizing that there are certain kind of facets of the technology on which, perhaps it shouldn't be compromised, and then also recognizing that, your grandmother is never going to be...
My slightly tongue-in-cheek answer to that is if I knew the answer to that, I would go start another company and just focus on that. I mean, I'm being somewhat facetious about that, but I think we could all agree that the nature of how some of this, we expose some of the underlying technology to a consumer, and we can use your uncle, your grandmother, whatever. It's like it's too hard, and we want to invite them in. It is on the positive side. It is as the U.S. regulatory framework changes and the ability for someone to say, I want to buy a Bitcoin ETF through my Fidelity account. Okay, that's not hard. People already know how to do that. But I think there's other examples, and I do think there's lots of entrepreneurs, some of them in this room, that are working on ways to make this more accessible to a larger audience.
Okay, and as we think about bringing in the next tens of millions of users to the crypto space, Richard, when we think of demographic, when we think of kind of geography, who do you imagine that these next 10,000, kind of tens of millions of users will be? Where will they be based? What would the demographic be? What products will they be using?
So the reason why crypto continue to exist and thrive since its very early days is because of the use cases, right? So I travel the world quite extensively. I see those. So the highest and the fastest pace of crypto adoption globally always happen in jurisdiction where financial inclusion is lower and where the demographics is younger, meaning they are much more tech savvy. Because if you ask a person in the 50s and 60s to go and create their own private keys, etc., to do those storage, they may not know how to do it.
Right? I would add a third one, though. I think distrust of the local government also contributes.
Hyperinflationary. Yeah. So you have all, and why is that the case? I mean, this is quite memorable. 2 years ago, I was on a conference like this with an IMF official and then bankers on the other side. I'm only crypto person on that stage, and the bankers were all attacking crypto sector, right? And the IMF person said, look, guys, the only reason why crypto exists is because you have not served your fundamental purpose, which is to serve the unbanked, serve the underserved. Globally, 1.4 billion people are still unserved, right, by the banking sector. So, and in all those countries where financial inclusion is 10-20%, crypto is the only mean and the fastest and most efficient mean, going back to the point that I'm making, both for domestic payment as well as cross-border payment. And compared to many of their local currency, where economy is going through hyperinflationary situation, it's a much better store of wealth, right? And I people coming up to thank me, to say thank you for the Bainense platform. It's because of this that we managed to store our wealth vis-a-vis, the neighbor next door, right? That holds it in fiat currency. So I've seen so many of these examples at work. The next billion, I mean, we have about 250 million users on our platform today. To reach the next billion users, which is what our goal is, you need to continue to improve on the UI UX. You need to continue to improve on the product features. There need to be much more regulatory clarity. But a lot will still hinges on the utility, the innovation that's coming through, the use cases coming through, because they will continue to drive crypto adoption globally, which is why as a platform, we're agnostic to all the different innovation that we're seeing in this space, and you're seeing very exciting things being built. But we want to be supportive of all the innovation that's coming through, because this represent the use cases that will propel crypto going forward.
Right. I mean, to that end, and I'd like to bring you both in on this next question, but let's start with you, Richard, since you kind of raised the point. I wonder kind of where you think capital might be most efficiently allocated when we think about ushering in this next tens of million, billion users to crypto. I'm thinking particular use cases, particular geographies. What are your thoughts?
Well, it depends on what you're looking for, right? So that's a very difficult, there's too generic a question to ask. But you look at the very important use cases that crypto has represent. Today, you have stable coins. You have the remittance space. I mean, if you do crypto remittance, the recipient get it instantaneously at a fraction of a cost compared to what you send via traditional financial institutions. It take 2-3 days, go through 2 correspondent banks. Sometimes they charge up to 10-15% of fees, right? So it is so much beneficial using crypto on many of those instances. And you see that narrative being replicated, right? To say that, can we do this? Pascal mentioned lending just now, right? So there are so many things that they are trying to reimagine the future of finance. So it really depends. I mean, in every sector, what we need to continue to focus on are problem statements. What's the problem that this particular technology is trying to solve? And I always believe that if you look at the future world, crypto, blockchain in general, together with AI, will form the fundamental technology that's going to drive every economic subsector going forward. So countries will do very well to focus their attention of how to bring about conducive environment for these two sectors.
네, 앞선 영상 잘 보셨을까요? 인터뷰의 내용을 좀 정리를 해드리자면 이제 암호화폐는 배경 속으로 사라져야 한다. 이 말은 뭐냐면 리플의 CEO 브래드 갈링하우스는 암호화폐가 진짜 대중화가 되려면 그 사람들이 암호화폐라는 기술의 존재를 의식하지 않고도 사용할 수 있어야 한다고 강조를 했습니다. 리플은 실제로 기관 고객을 대상으로 암호화폐를 통한 송금이라는 사실조차 모른 채 사용할 수 있는 서비스를 제공 중에 있습니다. 빠르고 저렴하며 실시간으로 정산되는 송금이 가능하다는 점이 핵심 가치이죠. 하지만 일반 사용자에게는 기술 장벽이 여전히 존재합니다. 이제 비밀키를 분실을 하면 자산을 영영 복구할 수가 없는 구조, 셀프 커스터디의 어려움, 고령층이나 비전문가에게는 너무 복잡한 인터페이스 등은 여전히 해결 과제로 남아 있습니다. 그렇다고 하면 다음 신규 암호화폐 진입자들은 어디서 찾아야 하는가? 바이낸스 CEO 리처드 탱은 3가지 요인을 언급을 했습니다. 이제 금융 포용도가 낮은 국가, 젊은 인구 비중이 높은 국가, 그리고 정부 및 기존 금융기관에 대한 불신이 큰 사회, 이런 곳들은 이런 곳들에서 암호화폐는 단순한 투자 수단이 아닌 실질적 생존 도구가 되고 있습니다. 예를 들어서 이제 하이퍼 인플레이션 국가에서는 이제 암호화폐는 법정 화폐보다 더 안정적인 가치 저장 수단으로 사용되며 이제 실제로 바이낸스를 통해 자산을 보호할 수 있었다는 감사 메시지를 받은 일도 많다라고 하죠. 이제 신규 사용자를 확보하기 위해서는 브래드와 리처드는 입을 모아서 이 세 가지가 필요하다라고 얘기를 했습니다. 더 쉬운 인터페이스 UI와 그 다음에 UX 사용자 경험 사례죠. 그 다음에 명확한 규제 환경, 그리고 무엇보다도 명확한 문제 해결 사례, 즉 유틸리티입니다. 리처드는 특히 스테이블 코인과 송금을 핵심 유틸리티로 꼽았습니다. 전통 금융 시스템보다 훨씬 빠르고 저렴한 국제 송금을 가능케 한다는 점에서 암호화폐는 명확한 경쟁력을 갖고 있다라는 것이죠. 이제 마지막으로 리처드는 이렇게 말을 했습니다. 앞으로 암호화폐, 블록체인, 인공지능 이 세 가지 기술이 결합해서 경제의 모든 분야를 재구성하게 될 것이라고요. 이 흐름을 선도하기 위해서는 각국 정부가 이 기술을 발전할 수 있는 우호적인 환경을 조성해야 한다는 것이 바로 리처드 탱의 메시지였습니다. 이상으로 암호화폐 유틸리티의 현재와 미래에 대해서 좀 살펴봤는데요. 여러분의 의견 궁금합니다. 댓글로 자유롭게 남겨주시고요. 제가 이 인터뷰 영상이 길어서 오늘은 이제 3부 영상으로 찾아뵈었었는데 이제 1, 2부 같은 경우에는 제가 더보기란에 링크로 달아놨습니다. 이 영상들도 보시는 걸 추천드리고요. 이제 남은 4부, 5부 영상들도 남았으니까 꼭 구독하셔서 이 영상들도 챙겨보시는 걸 추천드립니다. 그럼 저는 다음 영상으로 찾아뵐 수 있도록 하겠습니다. 감사합니다.